Loyalty is a virtue. That is what they told you. In church, in school, at the dinner table. They handed you this idea like a crown and told you to wear it proudly. Be loyal. Stay loyal. Loyalty is what separates the good man from the selfish one. And you believed it. You bled for people who were calculating their next move while you were still convinced you were on the same team. You stayed when you should have left. You defended people who would not even remember your name when the leverage shifted. You called it integrity. You called it strength. It was neither. Loyalty without strategy is not a virtue. It is a leash. And the people who praised you for wearing it so well, they were the ones holding the other end. There are 5 specific mechanisms through which your loyalty has been weaponized against you. The 5th one will explain why you keep repeating this cycle, no matter how many times it destroys you. If that makes you uncomfortable, close the video.
Go back to the crowd that calls blind devotion a character trait. But if you are ready to understand what is actually happening, stay. Phase 1. Loyalty was never designed for your benefit. Loyalty was engineered to serve systems, not individuals. The average man believes loyalty is a personal virtue, something he carries inside himself like a compass. He has never once stopped to ask who built the compass, or whose north it is actually pointing toward. You were brainwashed to believe that loyalty makes you noble. Religion needed you loyal to the institution. Governments needed you loyal to the state. Corporations need you loyal to the brand. Every system that has ever extracted value from human beings has done so by first convincing those human beings that their devotion was a reflection of their character. Machiavelli understood this. In The Prince, he wrote that men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that one who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived. He was not celebrating deception. He was performing an autopsy on the mechanism, showing you the bone structure beneath the flesh of social contracts you never agreed to sign. Robert Greene, in the 48 Laws of Power, codified what Machiavelli observed. Law 1. Never outshine the master. But beneath that law lives a darker truth, that systems reward loyalty only to the degree that it keeps you beneath someone else. Consider Thomas Cromwell. He served Henry VIII with absolute, ferocious loyalty. He dismantled the Catholic Church in England for him. He engineered marriages, destroyed enemies, built a new administrative state from the ground up. And Henry VIII, when it became politically convenient, sent him to the executioner's block without hesitation. Cromwell's loyalty was perfect. That is precisely why it was usable and disposable. The practical instruction is this: audit every relationship where you have never once asked what you are receiving in return for what you are giving. Not in a transactional way, in a forensic way. Map it. Write it down. If you find the exchange is consistently asymmetrical, you are not in a relationship. You are in a system. And you are not the architect. But understanding who built the cage is only the first step, because even once you see it, you still will not leave it. And that requires a different kind of explanation entirely. Phase 2. The psychological chain that keeps you returning. Your loyalty is not moral, it is neurological. And until you understand that, you will keep calling your conditioning a choice. The psychological concept here is called trauma bonding, first identified and studied in depth through the work of Patrick Carnes and expanded through research on coercive control dynamics. Trauma bonding does not require physical abuse. It requires only intermittent reinforcement. Warmth, then withdrawal. Approval, then silence. Reward, then punishment. The unpredictability itself becomes the addiction. Your brain begins to crave resolution, and the only place it believes resolution exists is through the person or system administering the cycle. This is why the loyal man stays, not because leaving has not occurred to him, but because his nervous system has been trained to interpret loyalty as survival. To leave feels like severing something biological. To stay feels, against all evidence, like a form of safety. The Spartans understood the inverse of this. Their training, the agoge, was designed specifically to sever the comfort-dependency bond early. Boys were separated from family at 7, placed in conditions of deliberate scarcity, and forced to develop self-sufficiency before any external loyalty was demanded. The Spartans were not disloyal people, but their loyalty was chosen from a position of strength, not clung to from a position of psychological hunger. The action you must take is this. Identify the moment in any relationship where you first felt you had to earn your place. That moment, that precise moment, is where the bond was installed. It was not love. It was an anchor. And anchors do not rise. They sink. You are still here. Good. The fragile ones already left. What comes next is the part no one talks about because it implicates people you are not ready to let go of yet. Phase 3. The people who praise your loyalty are profiting from it. When someone tells you that you are the most loyal person they know, pause. Ask yourself a different question, not whether it is a compliment. Ask what it is costing you for them to have that experience of you. The average man glows when he is called loyal. He wears it like a medal. He does not understand that the person pinning the medal to his chest is simultaneously ensuring he will not move. This is triangulation in its social form, a psychological manipulation strategy in which a third party or concept is used to regulate and control the primary target. In this case, your identity as the loyal one becomes the triangle. You cannot betray yourself without feeling like you are betraying the label. So you stay, you absorb, you continue. Cosimo de' Medici, the architect of Florentine banking power in the 15th century, did not build his empire through loyalty. He built it through strategic alliance, carefully sequenced. He was generous when generosity built leverage. He was cold when coldness was necessary. He was never captured by the identity of being a good friend. He understood that sentiment, deployed without calculation, is a vulnerability dressed as a strength. The practical instruction. The next time someone calls you loyal as a form of praise, notice whether the praise comes at a moment when you are being asked to continue absorbing a cost. Notice the timing. Praise is often a sedative administered before an extraction. Comment below. I choose the cold path. Phase 4. Loyalty to the wrong self is the most dangerous loyalty of all. Here is where it turns inward, and this is where most people stop reading. You are not only loyal to people who drain you, you are loyal to a version of yourself that no longer serves you. The old identity. The story you built about who you are. The reliable one, the one who stays, the one who does not quit. and that story has become a prison with your own name on the door. The psychological framework here is cognitive dissonance, first formalized by Leon Festinger in 1957. When your behavior conflicts with your self-image, the mind does not change the behavior. It rewrites the perception of reality to protect the image. So you do not see that you are being used. You see evidence that you are needed. You do not see that you have stayed too long. You see loyalty as a long-term investment that is not paid out yet. The mind bends reality before it will bend identity. Napoleon Bonaparte fell into precisely this trap, not with people, but with his own self-concept as an unstoppable military genius. After 1812, the calculus of European warfare had changed. His generals knew it. His marshals began to see it. But Napoleon's loyalty to his own historic identity, his inability to adapt his self-perception, led him directly to Waterloo. It was not a failure of tactics alone. It was a failure of self-revision. The instruction, identify one belief you hold about yourself that requires you to stay small, stay silent, or stay loyal to something that is consuming you. Not a belief someone else gave you, a belief you have since claimed as your own. That belief is the last leash, and you will not find freedom until you burn it. Phase 5. The exit is not betrayal. It is archaeology. Walking away from misplaced loyalty does not make you disloyal. It makes you honest. The average person confuses endurance with devotion. They believe that leaving means they never cared, that the duration of their stay is the measure of the relationship's value. This is catastrophic thinking. It is also, and this is critical, exactly what a system that feeds on your presence needs you to believe. Joe Navarro, the former FBI behavioral analyst and expert in human behavior, has written extensively about how people in coercive dynamics are trained to interpret their own desire for exit as evidence of personal failure, rather than as evidence of finally seeing clearly. The guilt you feel when you consider leaving is not your conscience. It is the conditioning speaking. Learn to tell the difference. King Philip IV of France disbanded the Knights Templar in 1307, not out of moral conviction, but out of strategic necessity. The Templars had become too powerful, too loyal to their own institution rather than to evolving political realities. They could not adapt their loyalty, and so history consumed them. Their rigidity, their refusal to revise allegiance, was not their greatest virtue. It was their fatal flaw. The cold, specific instruction, write down what you would do, who you would become, and what you would build if loyalty to the wrong things were not holding you in place. That document is not a fantasy. It is a map. Begin walking. This path is not warm. Let that be clear. The man who stops being endlessly available becomes isolated before he becomes powerful. There is a window, sometimes months, sometimes longer, where you will be called cold, selfish, changed. And you will be in a room alone wondering whether what you gave up was worth what you are building. Machiavelli wrote The Prince in exile. He had served Florence faithfully. He had been imprisoned. He had been tortured on the strappato, his arms dislocated behind his back. And he never broke. And then, released and stripped of everything, still limping from what they did to him, he sat down and wrote the most ruthless, clear-eyed analysis of power the Western world has ever produced. Not from a position of strength, from a ditch. The wolf does not apologize for leaving the flock. He does not explain himself to the sheep. He walks into the cold, and the cold, over time, becomes his element. This freedom is not comfortable, but it is the only freedom that is truly yours. Everything else, every warmth you clung to at the cost of your clarity, was borrowed, and borrowed warmth always carries interest. You made it to the end. That already separates you from most.
Not because the content was difficult, because the truth required you to sit with discomfort for longer than the average person is willing to. Most people close the video the moment it stops flattering them. You stayed through the part that implicated you. That is not nothing. Subscribe, not because I asked. Subscribe because you are done being the most loyal person in rooms that would not notice your absence until they needed something from you again. Subscribe because you understand now that strategy is not the opposite of integrity. It is integrity in its most ruthless and honest form. There is content I cannot publish openly, things the algorithm suppresses, frameworks that go further than what is permitted in a public format. Those exist behind the membership. If you are ready for that level, you already know what to do. The cold path is long, but it is yours.